What's good, y'all? What's the numbers TV? It's your boy Poro. Back to my co-host Batty Billz. What's good, big?
What's good?
Ain't nothing, man. You know, we back to touch on this new Alpo content that we got our hands on. So we're gonna do a quick little we both read the book. It's a book called I Never Met Alpo by Troy Reid. Troy Reid from the famous, documentary, street documentaries and all that, and Street Stars, and from that cloth. And the book on the cover base says Alpo served 24 years in prison. This is Albert served 24 years in prison, but Alpo got him killed in 6. This is my story about one of America's most notorious gangsters, Alpo Martinez. And I think that right there first we can talk about. It's official Alberto. Some people call him Alberto. I think Albert's officially it's the name. His name was Albert Martinez.
Yeah.
So you read the book also, right, B?
Yeah. It's a good read.
Definitely a good read. I ran through it
for a good read.
Short read, but I ran through it in like one and a half sittings because I wanted to stretch it out a little bit. But you could run through it if you got the time.
I ran through it in a few hours.
Few hours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing I would say, part of the reason why I read it straight through is because a lot of the information in the book was new information that we didn't really know about. Or you might have heard rumblings about. We didn't know the whole story, so it ended up coming out.
It's a little captivating. It's got some emotion in it because you can see a friendship basically by you tagging along. I mean, we're getting more into that, but
so we're gonna touch the first chapter. B is basically he talks about some things, some dudes, a dude named Black. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That he might have but that's not the first chapter. That's like something beforehand when he talks about his life and all that. How Alpo talks about certain things he was doing and all that.
Yeah. I found out in the first chapter, was that he was born in Brooklyn. He was from Brooklyn and moved to Harlem when he was like 5 or 6. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's something you wanted to touch on.
That was wild. Wow. Alpo was born in Brooklyn.
And the first chapter basically says feds off ultimatum. And I guess why it comes into that because this is where he starts having to tell about his whole history from the beginning. Mm-hmm. He can't leave nothing out. You know what I'm saying? So he goes back to the beginning. So he talks about a dude named Black. Now, some people was trying to say Black is a notorious gangster from the east side of Harlem, just under a different name, if you know what I'm saying. And Alpo basically says how he went and caught his first murder with that dude. Remember that story, B, in the book?
Yeah, he did. He said he didn't know it was a murder then and there because
it didn't feel like an actual murder because he couldn't see the blood and things like that. And before we go further, what you think about that though? At that age, catching your first body, was it just destined to be a disaster from that moment on? Like you think he was just on that road to like where he ended up type shit? Is that like the seed?
You talk about growing up and you talk about like I guess the situation with that particular person, Black. Like, Black used to bully him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you talk about the time when Black took his coat and his mom went out.
Step to Black was his mom's and all that.
Yeah, his mom stepped to him. You know what I'm saying? So that was somebody he looked at, but he said at the time he was always like one of them, and I can relate to that. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure you can too. He's one of the young dudes that was like running around with like older dudes and grown men at early age, like 12, 13, at those ages, those grooming ages, because his father, the presence of his father wasn't there. That's what I would put that too. You know what I'm saying?
But like seeing that like happening at that age, do you feel like that it was like basically like a recipe for disaster? It was like no turning back. Once he hits that first one, it's like where from there does he go? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like to see where he ended up. It's like to see where it started. It's like, damn, where do you go from there? You know what I mean? If you shooting dudes through the pillow at 14, it's like I could see how it went. It escalated from there. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, he's
calculated robberies and being around older dudes. So it's not like a regular young person that might get into a situation and pull a gun out and shoot somebody because he's scared or something. Like these is calculated moves that they're doing, and it's like his life is like already calculated in an element that's not suitable for him to win in life from an early age. You understand what I mean? Like catching bodies at that age, robberies. It's like
I think it might have been a situation with the dude Black that if he didn't do that, Black told him he didn't want, like he was speaking in Spanish, like chill poppy, telling him in Spanish. But I think he figured that if he didn't do that, then Black would do it to him.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Because he didn't make the move until Black told the move.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like he just came in off the rip, like,
Yeah. All right, we're gonna move on because I don't want to give up too much of the books. People still go and read it, but we're gonna go on from there. And in chapter 2, the title says the shame of becoming an informant. right? Because in the first, before we move on, basically at that meeting, the feds is letting them know we want Wayne. Mm-hmm. If you're willing to give us Wayne, so then he makes that decision to become a federal informant, right? It kind of felt to me like once he made his mind up, the decision was easy for him. And he, you know, as far as like he knew he was going there. Once he made his, like he said, he sat for a minute, but once he made his mind out to be an informant, he knew he was in. Like it is what it was.
It is what it was. Yeah.
Like what you think was his, you know, his mind state at that time? You know what I'm saying?
I can't relate because I've never been placed in that situation.
All right.
But from the Reid, I mean, I've been placed in that situation, but I've never I did the opposite. I've always I knew my consequences and my actions before me getting into any situation I got into.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't do that.
And then you remember he told about trying to set the DC dudes up and having like a change
of heart. Like, you know, he was kind of mixed, like, you know what I'm saying? But I think what fueled the flame in him because, like, even though he was telling them, I think like when they went back out in the streets and was, you know, he said he had a conversation with Wayne even after he flipped, but he ain't say nothing about Wayne yet. You know what I'm saying, over the phone. And like, you know, people were spreading the word that like I think he telling like the two dudes he tried to, you know. So then I think that kind of fueled the flame. Like, fuck it, I'm all the way in.
Yeah, his name was out there as far as him being a rat. Because he even talks about having a conversation with Wayne, and Wayne's telling him like, I know my boy wouldn't do that, but he says even in the back of his mind, he's thinking the Ray's thinking like he's telling. You know what I mean?
Wayne said he had to beat up a few niggas.
Yeah. Yeah, that was speaking on his name. After the dudes had really went out there spitting some real shit because Poe told him, and he thought they was going to take it on some like, oh, good looking, but it was the opposite. They was upset, and they went out to the streets and put that energy out there like Poe a rat type shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they did.
And
they did.
Yeah, so that's part, you know, chapter. Some of the things that's happening in chapter 2. Like I said, go read the book. It's a great read. So moving along, chapter 3, it says the title is called "I Had to Be Stopped in My Tracks." Now, in this one, he talks about coming into the Witness Protection Program, and he talks about how it was kind of like a laid-back environment because he's in there with everybody that's done the same thing as him, and how he was hearing dudes from New York talk about stories of Alpo, and he's actually sitting in the unit, and then he would go to dudes after, like, you know, that's me, and their face would light up, and you know what I mean? Like, being that someone who did time before, can you envision of a unit that's like that, where he's saying like it's all good, nobody's tripping, it's just we all chilling, we all ratted. It's
all that's how it is. Like they basically all the same in the same, you know, cage.
They just doing time trying to get
on the hierarchy or based upon maybe what you had done in the streets or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's other people that was there too. You know what I'm saying? They was just of guilt of the same shit that he was part of at that point in time. But like, you know, they talking about street reputations and resumes, like trading war stories that happens all the time in jail. Like a nigga be like motherfuckers would be captivated. It'd be like 10 to 12 niggas by a bunk while a nigga telling the story, like bedtime story. Like, oh, we be doing here, you know, but they very descriptive. I ain't front. I've seen it. I've been a part of it. I've also been involved in it. You know what I'm saying? So
involved in what per se?
Like telling the story, like, you know what I'm saying, like a jailhouse story. Like niggas will tell a story about when they is in the street. You know what I'm saying? Like while they was in jail, they telling the story about some shit they did in the street, but then it'd be like 10, 15 niggas around they bunk or whatever, or they sell while the nigga chop telling the story. It's like, but it's like it's a you hearing it, but you also getting visual interpretation based upon how you hearing the story. You feel me?
Yeah.
And so it's like always in jail, niggas is always trading war stories.
He also speaks about travel, how they travel like the modern average person. How the average person, they sometimes they without cuffs. Sometimes they take you here and they stay at good hotels. You get to order room service, eat what they eat.
I ain't never heard of no shit like that. That's maybe for high profile witness protection niggas.
Yeah, he said, especially when you're going to testify against people. You know what I mean?
I mean, I've seen dudes come back to like when I was fighting a case and it was other federal guys, like they was, but I haven't been sentenced. They might have got sentenced and I seen them come back, and then you typically know what they coming back for. Like if not a appellate thing, they usually coming back for some shit like that. Cause then they might bring they gotta bring, like, say somebody's an informant, they gotta bring them, even though like I say like right when the trial starts. You know what I'm saying? So say they're gonna bring them to the county. Most of the time it's like they go to the county jails and shit. And like that's special treatment for, I guess, high profile witness protection.
Definitely.
But they bring him back to the county jail, and then like say if I was going to trial, right? And then they brought back the CI for my case, and they waiting, but then like right at the last minute, I decide to cop out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They'll send him back. And he didn't get, like, it's been situations like that has happened too.
Yeah, that's how it was. He said he didn't have to testify on Wayne. He only had to testify on one crew of dudes that was doing their thing later on, like 10 years down the line and all that.
They went to trial.
Yeah, he said he wasn't even really ready for that. They just came and got him. And he said that's how the Fed got to go, like, you know, when they come and get you. But one thing I do want to say before moving on, B, I want to say this though. Throughout the book, he was even in chapter, as far as chapter, as early as chapter 3, he was speaking about. This is the part I don't want to give away. I want him to go read, but he was speaking about how certain decisions he done were eating him up, were messing with him every night in his cell, and were killing him for the 10, 20 years that he sat there. He did mention that a few times, as far as like he would beat himself up about certain decisions he made. You know what I mean? About some murders or the situation he did to tell on certain people. So he said he was killing him while he was in there. Like he was dealing with certain things, or like even being so early as far as like a youth amongst men in the streets, how he had to, basically what you said earlier. It was just him taking orders, following rules, basically. And he felt being
really wanted to be a fireman, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And he felt like he had to do these things if he wanted to. He was a character, basically. You know what I'm saying? That's what he was saying. Like Alpo was a character he had to portray in the streets to survive.
He really wanted to be a fireman. He was in love with fire trucks.
Exactly. So, you know, throughout the book, that's a common theme about him dealing with his inner demons and him certain decisions.
Yeah, then he reminiscing about the times he was in a fresh air fund and like going back to the innocent kid. Like he said, his mom had him in all the activities, like he was fresh air fun, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, all that shit. So
definitely.
But see, that's the thing, you know, during those environments, especially back in those days, you know, when the father was pushed out the household. So his father, I'm not saying that's his particular situation, because he said his dad is actually, Alpo's a mixture of Jamaican and Puerto Rican.
Mm-hmm.
He said his dad is Jamaican, but his mom is always telling me 100% Puerto Rican because, you know what I'm saying, his dad wasn't around. But his dad is, that's why he's probably from Brooklyn. But his dad is Jamaican, his mom is Puerto Rican. So
So the next chapter was chapter 4. It's called My First of Many Visits. Now, this is where him and Troy Reid finally made contact face to face. And basically this was the beginning of Alpo quiet as step. It was his beginning of Alpo's reintroduction to the streets. Because with this is what fueled the first documentary, which, you know, created that buzz. And so, you know, this was besides the movie and all that, this was things that started to, you know, get people ready for Alpo's return to the streets 20-something years later, which will come on, what happened later on in the book. So one thing I want to talk about, I don't want to stay on this topic, I want people to read the book, but one thing I did want to say is the Otisville situation. How he goes to see Guy Fisher in the real part of the jail. And it's like, you know, real jail. He sees other gangsters there, Prince is there. He mentioned another dude. And then he said he goes to the back, and it's like this Area 51. It's everything's blacked out.
Crazy.
It's little cobwebs on the phone to call it. It's just like all types of crazy things going on.
Shit like out in the woods somewhere, and it's like a pole sticking up with a phone thing on it.
But it's in the same jail area. They say it's to the back of the jail. So it's like, did that shock you anything about that? Being somebody who done time in the state before and everything?
Nah, that shocked me. They got like facilities grouped up together.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, they usually have shit like, I mean, and like I said, he's in witness protection. Like I tell you, up north in the state, they got sections for like rapos, like, you know what I'm saying, where they put rape, like, you know what I'm saying, they got their own little. It's a facility.
About cop facilities too, where certain cops might go.
Cop facilities where certain cops go. So, like that didn't, you know, the only thing that kind of, because like, you know, they got intimate about like the procedure of when he got visited, like it was up Alpo, like or had like people in those situations got to, when they got to verify the visitor before. Like I never been through a situation where like when I got a visit, people come visit me. If I didn't ever have to go peek and approve of my visitor, like you gotta, how I usually go, you gotta approve visitor list. You know what I'm saying? But then like I ain't never had to verify my visitor. Like they see that person coming up. So like he had to prove, like it was a second like authentication. You know, like you got a 2-factor on your phone. It was basically like, he got called on the visiting floor. But then before he could actually go in, you know, he gotta yeah, it's who it is. I guess they were so highly protected. So like I
Yeah.
never seen that part. Like that's new to me.
The next chapter is called "Surrounded by Gangsters, Notorious Gangsters." That's when he was around, and that he said those chapters kind of similar. But when I talk about this, I want to touch on the same person, two different instances, and then move on from this one. I don't want to give too much away. Like I want to talk about Guy Fisher. It was two instances with Guy Fisher. It was a couple instances, but I want to talk about two particular ones. One before Alpo went to jail, and one after. So I really want to talk about the character of Guy in this question. So but hear me out. So when he speaks to Alpo the first time, Alpo's in jail, not in jail. He's like, he's in the streets. He's still a stand-up dude. He says, I heard about you. Yeah, I heard about you. Treat shorty with care. Rock out with the jewelry, whatever. Right? Boom. Yeah. Then the second time, after Alpo went bad, Troy tells him about he's going to do an interview, right? Mm-hmm. And Guy says his story needs to be heard just as mine. I'm not mad at you, little bro. Do your thing.
It's a job. It's your job.
What does that say about Guy Fisher? Even though somebody went bad, he might have known some dudes that, he did some things to people in Harlem, maybe might have affected him. For him to still say after all that, without being a hater, without nothing, go do that, do your thing.
Nah, because he looked at it
down on Alpo too much to him. You know what I mean?
He looked at it from a sensible aspect of like it's business. Like he said, it's your job. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're a journalist. Like you're Troy is doing journalism. He's doing journalism with me. So you gotta have both sides of the street. You know what I'm saying? Or you're not being, you're being biased. If you just got one side of the street or the other. So, and like he looked at it from a perspective that like it's business, like you're doing your job. Like, all right, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it wasn't even
I didn't think he looked at it. Why you like giving him some light or nothing like that?
He looking at him while you dealing with that rat. He didn't say nothing. You know what I'm saying? He basically was like, after being told on, after doing all this time. So that's like, shout out to Guy Fisher, man, legend for real.
And Alpo was in the same facility with the person that told on Guy Fisher. Like he said at one point in time when he first landed, he was there with Nicky Barnes and Sammy the Bull, and they was all in the same.
Those is good. So like I said, man, make sure you check out the book, man. Moving right along though, chapter 6 is called "Release from Prison, Given a Second Chance." Now, you go first on this one. This is Alpo coming home from jail. What was your take on that? He got within protection, getting set up with the bread and the housing and all that. What did you feel on that initiative when you reading that part of the book? He had a chance to win. Was he set up right? Like, what was going on?
He definitely was set up right. They gave him, they gave him startup money, to reestablish himself, to get a place. Like he basically got a year's salary, like a decent minimum, I would say median income for a single person salary.
He was at probably.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I would say. He got 1 year's salary, and he was able to furnish his crib. He had a whole new identity. You know what I'm saying? That would check out clear, where he was able to get a job. You know what I'm saying? When he got a CDL and all that other stuff, so with no issues. Probably had a clean record underneath that name too. Abraham, whatever Rodriguez, probably was a clean, like he had no felonies in that. You know what I'm saying?
And one thing he said was the one thing I was prevalent from early was the money spending. What do you take that on for somebody that just did 20-something years to come home?
He had proper money management, and the thing about it is you got to look at this thing. He did 24 years. He was trying to. When he went in, he was 25. When he came home, he was 25. You feel me? Even though he was older, you know what I'm saying? But he didn't have he was spending money like he was hustling. You know what I'm saying? So that 25, whatever the stipend he was getting per month, read the book and find out. You know what I'm saying?
Next chapter, chapter 7, new name, new place. That's just basically, Troy taking a ride up there to check him out and all that. Well, it's, there's regular stuff that they got going. Went to the little things, clubbing and things down the third. That's you go check that. That's part of the book.
Yeah, that's more like camaraderie. That's like they was developing a real over the time. What you see is a friendship developed that started from people that really didn't know each other.
And then being able to do it from a sitting down through a glass and now doing it and fitting in the physical. That's basically, what I'm saying. Chapter 8 is the beginning of sneaking into New York City. My question on that is why?
Because the first part, I think, was the reason why was he wanted to see his family and see his kids.
Okay.
See his mom. He didn't get to see them. And and then that was but then when he got up with Troy, you see Troy was type lit, and Troy took him to you know,
and all that,
yeah, up there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's seen like, oh, y'all can really
that. So
he got a taste of it, and that's what that started it all.
And what do you think about? Let me ask you this though, before we move off from this. What you think the feds knew he was sneaking in New York?
Not in the beginning. Well, I think after a while they caught wind.
And
I mean, sometimes they be lax on like for POs and all that. Like as long as you stay off the radar as far as like police contact.
That's supposed to be a little more, hands on.
Yeah, but they not looking. I don't think they was monitoring him after he got out. Like, you know what I'm saying?
And from there, that's things that we start. He starts going up there. He starts hitting the ball. He starts going with Troy to then eventually going by himself. And
that was actually creating the myth that surrounded. Because remember, everybody was like, "Yo, Alpo got security and shit," but that was really it wasn't that. It was Troy's security.
Yeah, definitely. So the next one is called Chapter 9. Caught on camera. Video goes viral. Now it comes to find out in this book that it was a first time that he got his picture taken, but Troy ends up running down on the dude. They delete it, but now he ends up coming back more and more. And then now this time he ends up moving around. This is when they filmed the infamous Rich Porter scene, and Alpo wants to pop out and go get some food in the Bronx from a spot. And on the way out, a dude is perched up on the car and gets a video, uploads it, and the video goes viral. Right? Do you think he wanted that at that point? Or was he sleeping on the internet how Troy made it seem so much? Or do you think he was just ready to come out? He was ready to be seen. He knew the POs they was going to see it, and it was just that time. What you think? His mind said at that time.
I would somewhat agree. I think like once he got that first taste, and like I said, he didn't smoke or drink. He had his vices was women. You know what I'm saying? So and then when he seen the like the women, and then like I said, he could speak Spanish too. So where he was at, he was good. You know what I'm saying? So he's seen like the women, and that I think that drove him because where he was living, it didn't positively reach his criteria as what he's attracted to in Maine rather than in New York. You know what I'm saying? Like the type of woman, and it's different. Standards. Like they might have been not he would go like when he was in Maine. They say he liked to go to Boston a lot. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. Definitely.
It wasn't that Maine wasn't popping.
And he said he wasn't a drinker.
I think the leg actually drove him to being like out in the open, outside. The leg, I think it was all leg driven.
Yeah, because it wasn't alcohol driven. He wasn't a drinker. He wasn't a drug guy, like, you know what I'm saying? So it might have been. It might have been the leg. So the next chapter, chapter 10, is called An Appearance at the Apollo Theater. We can skip this one pretty fast, but basically he was saying like how Alpo started linking up with other dudes, doing security and with jazz bands and shows and popping out, going backstage, meeting up with Teddy Riley, I think a couple other people he said, right?
Yeah.
Poe was moving around. Poe was moving around, right? Like it's safe to say Poe was moving around. We ain't got to even touch on that one too much. But what do you think? Let me ask you this though. We do got to touch on this. In that same chapter, he touches about he had a conversation with Alpo, like, yo, you look crazy. He said, big bro, you look crazy, quote unquote, driving around Harlem like you had never done anything wrong. And the fact that you impulsively jumped out the car just to talk to someone you happened to bump into on Rich Pat Porter's block, 132nd Street, makes it look like you don't have no regard for her and her family. And you know what I'm saying? Basically telling Harlem small, let them have Harlem. And Poe basically like, what I'm supposed to do, you know what I'm saying? Live my life around them. What do you think behind that dynamic? Was Troy giving him game, or could have like what you think about that? Was Poe right in that situation? Like, because Poe's not the first person to kill somebody from a neighborhood and come back. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah.
So, but what do you think? Like, what do you think?
I think it was the combination of not only that, but the fact that Poe was the foreman too.
Yeah.
That probably helps him, that held some weight in what Troy Reid was thinking. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I could feel like Poe was just thirsty, man. Like he wanted to be outside, bro. It was nothing that like nothing that could stop that from happening. Once he got a taste of it, it was nothing that was stopping it.
Facts. So I can say the perfect word. He's like you impulsively just not even thinking, just jumped out You understand what I'm saying? Like, so you just living like without no realization of what you did, basically. No, so that's you know what I'm saying. But like I said, that's another good part of the book. People need to check that out. Man. It's a great
Once
book.
he was outside, it was over.
Yeah.
You know, the women, like he always talked to, like throughout the book, when you read the book, he always talked to Troy about like chick issues. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Now, chapter 11 is called The Sudden Loss of His Mother and Sister. Now, in the book, his sister gets sick and passes away. It was a little, you know, it was a few different times they touched on it. But then his mother gets sick out of nowhere and passes away. And it happens like kind of back to back and all that. Was that the breaking point, you feel?
I think so.
Like, it was nothing to hide for no more. There's nothing left to hide for, be safe.
Like, something happens. If anything happens, it happens.
Yeah. It's not like
they're already gone. The people, some of the people that I love the most, which I think he should have put his kids into that, like, you know, hierarchy. But like his mom losing him.
You know, I think he probably had that relationship. He grew up with his mom. He probably wasn't there for his kids. So that bond, he probably loved his kids, got a great relationship with the kids. But I'm talking about, like, you know, that mom is a little different when you know how that goes.
Yeah.
You know what
so
I'm saying?
Then, like, because his mom, way, like, you know, in the book, the author talks about a time where, like, his relationship with his mom was very, very strong. They had a great bond. They had a real, real strong bond.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like that was. I feel like that.
I was thinking like the chick Cha Cha Mystique that she's related to him and all that. She talked about how his mother was with him too.
Yeah. And I feel like that was definitely, he was ready to get out on the program and come back to the city by that time. Yeah. So chapter 12 called Documentary Accidentally Leaked. Now, the clip comes out, it leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. Poe, it seems like, got people in his ear saying people got to change on the side. Troy might have did that on purpose. And what do you think about? Do you think people have Poe have the wrong people feeding them feeding them ideas or information or things like that?
I do. I think he was listening to too many people and not the I think if from reading the book, information that Troy was giving him was on point. But I think being that he wanted stuff instantaneous and he wanted to control, he wasn't well informed, put it like that. He had too many people in his ear and he didn't dissect the right, because some people was telling him mainstream. But if he wanted to control his own narrative and have creative control over his property, I would have went with the way Troy Reid was offering. But I think he was just
yeah, we're gonna get to that next, definitely.
He was just he had too many people in his ear, bro. He had too many people. I don't think that was in regards to street situations, but as far as his story or how his story being told, he had too many people in his ear.
And I know, and why I say is the wrong people, because we content creators, right? We know the behind the scenes, certain things of the internet and how to make money on the internet, right? And we know, me and you, that he has to be people that knew about the internet but didn't know about the internet, because why would they say he's trying to make money off one clip when Poe, you the money? So, you know, he needs you to make the money. That one clip isn't going to make nothing. That's just one clip. So it's like, if you would have knew that, if somebody would have really knew that, they would have been able to tell him, nah, he's not doing that. Actually, probably you got all everything. You know what I'm saying? So, but that goes leads to the next chapter, which is chapter 13. It's a quick read. It's like 15 chapters, something like that, or maybe a little less or more, whatever. But that's the next chapter is called An Attempt to get a movie deal, right? Because it says after the clip comes out, it says regardless if he was looked at insensitive or mocking it, he still got a lot of attention behind it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, he did.
And he started getting a lot of meetings, this, that, and the third.
Because he didn't know what viral was. He was it was shocking to him.
Yeah, and he said something like, regardless of anything, there is no such thing as bad publicity. So his popularity still continued to rise after that clip. You understand what I'm saying? But Troy was saying that basically he was getting these meetings and trying to get people, were telling him to try to get the movie deal with a big studio, but they would have the meeting, but then act like they're not interested after or something, right? And basically how Troy's telling him, bro, we could do our own thing. We could do our own thing in the internet, basically just drop it in little series or little videos, interviews, whatever, and just eat ourselves. But Poe didn't really know the ins and outs. He thinking, he really think a movie deal, that's all he really know. So what do you think as far as that situation? Like hindsight 2020, of course, but you think that would have been like the real way, the best way to do it, and then generate that into a movie deal, like work with Troy directly, put out little, vlogs and shit like that? Or you think Poe was right? It's his story, tell it his way.
He tried to do it his way, and it wasn't. It was like while reading the book, it wasn't as successful. I think if he would have did it the way Troy had it, like, because I think like for me knowing from the ins and outs, he would have had. He still could have got the big people to come in eventually, but he would have found some form of success in independently controlling his narrative.
Yeah, it's just crazy, like, because like if Troy doesn't,
he was thirsty, because like the way the book said, like he was thirsty for the bread. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then I say like if Troy doesn't have a lot of footage, a lot of stuff already done, it's like we lost out on all it because you know what I'm saying. He was waiting for somebody to tell his story when he could have told his own story. Just you know what I'm saying. But like I said, it goes deeper than that if you read into the book. And I also want to say throughout the book, Troy's dealing with little health issues. Well, I'm not saying little, with health issues here and there, as far as like needing surgeries and this kind of thing, right? So in chapter 14, it says the last time I saw Alpo, because Troy had moved and all that, and then he had came back to New York, and Poe was living in Jersey at the time with a female. Some people would say, saying relating to a certain female, What did you see as far as that last coming, where Troy kind of felt it was the end? Like, do you feel it like a culmination of the relationship coming to an end at that point?
With him and Troy's relationship,
like,
or
Troy kind of felt like he told his wife, like, I probably would never see Poe again no more. He felt him changing. He said, I finally called him Poe because he wasn't Albert no more, or Big Bro. Like, did you see like their relationship coming to an end, basically? You know what I'm saying? Like,
maybe not, because he was trying to like
work with him still, but
work with him and get him to come to LA.
Poe flipped on him though about going to LA. Like, I'm not going out there, remember?
But then remember later on, after he was out there for a while, Poe called him and was like, yo, and he FaceTime and showed this man with the choppers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So like, they had found common interests, you know what I'm saying? It's like motorcycles and shit like that. So, but I think eventually, maybe, who knows? But I think he was so like he held his popularity was in New York, where he felt like I don't, if I go to LA or somewhere else, I got to start over, and I might not be a known figure, jumping in out, you know what I'm saying, in those particular areas. Why he wanted to concentrate to be in New York.
It looked like he wanted to come to LA when he had the movie premiere ready to come out. You know what I'm saying? Like he had everything ready to go, type shit.
Like, well, if he was already lit, like he wanted to get super lit, even though I'm just lit, but he wanted to get lit on a bigger stage, like industry stage. If he got in the industry stage, I could see him moving to LA.
Thanks. So right here, the last chapter of the book, man, it's called chapter 15. The day I found out he was killed. Mm-hmm. Right. So after their last meeting, he says that a couple months go by, this, that, and the third, he finally gets the call, or you know what I'm saying, about Poe passing away. And he didn't sound surprised. He felt like somebody finally did it, something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of like a cult. The book kind of felt like an ending. Like me reading this book kind of felt like the story kind of complete. You know what I'm saying? Which is why I wanted to review on this book. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of it all, B, what did you take from it at the end of the book, man? Like the last chapter, you know what I'm saying? When Alpo finally, what you got from the book besides the new information you learned about?
That he was a human, bro. Besides being an informant, he dealt with emotions. You might see a little bit more, because he did talk about the remorse aspect. Troy went into depth. So I think like maybe that's like this book is a teaser for what's later to come. Because like he said, like only thing that got leaked was those 10 minutes of that footage, so it's still other footage.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
So
come out.
And besides that, like, I think he got caught up when he came back to New York and living his second childhood.
Yeah, and this is the bonus thing we're going to talk about real quick of the book. Poe wanted to get some money to get some buzz sent to the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
Until he got around people who was, at first it was sounding good. Then he comes back and says, man, these dudes fretting, man. These dudes ain't getting no money out here like that. With what we know about the streets, we know a lot about people talk, but when it's time to show and prove, it's very few that can get the job done how they talk about. And it feel like, I feel like back in the day, everybody could move a brick or two in the 90s. Everybody, it was everywhere. They was flying through it. I feel like whole scene coming home in 20-something, coming back and trying to hustle 2020, 2019, whatever. It was a real different ball game. And he realized that kind of fast. And, certain information that we heard about, even to the relation of maybe he was trying to toss dope bags out the window. I feel like he got the realization real quick that if he's going to go about that route, marijuana, I don't think was the route he was going to go, which made it cause him to go somewhere else if he did. You understand what I'm saying? But you got any thoughts on that last piece before we wrap this up? Like, what do you think? He was trying to get back in. He was trying to be the weed guy. What do you think at that point? What was?
I think he was desperate. He wanted to keep up, bro. Like he see how, like the demographic was. Like you just can't get you wasn't gonna just always just get buns off what your name and reputation was. Like you know what I'm saying. And then he also had that image of before like spinning bread. Like you know what I'm saying. So like that stipend that ran its course, so it was gone.
Thanks.
So, but then I also think that people might have been misleading him because they didn't want to fuck with him because of his history. You know what I'm saying? I think that people might have shot him like a dart, a few darts. Like he might like, that's why he's saying they ain't got no money. But deep down inside, they telling them they're gonna fuck with him, but they're not fucking with him. You know what I'm saying? They just because they associate with him, but they're not really gonna do that kind of business with him. And
in the book, he also mentions about somebody of kin identifying his body, right? In the book? All right. So we're gonna leave it at that. Like I said, man, go get the book. It's a great read. Shout out Troy Reid. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna wrap this up, man. It's Poro, Batty, Billz. What's the number TV? I never met Alpo book review. We out of here. Peace.